Hey, welcome back to True-Moto-Resto, and today we're going to take a look at doing some body work on a Kawasaki 350. Okay, another paint project here from my buddy Mark. This is a Kawasaki 350. I'm not sure exactly what model Kawasaki it is, but this was Mark's first motorcycle. Not this exact bike, but one exactly like it. And so my job is to do a little bit of body work and repaint it, put the decals on and all that kind of good stuff. So the repair work on this bike will be, so there's a dent in the tank here that I want to try to remove before I put any filler in. A couple of little dings here and there, nothing major. And then there's this tail section is also made of steel, and there's a pretty good sized crease in here. It's got a bend in the metal there, and then there's a bit of a dent in there as well. The side panels look pretty good. I haven't seen any obvious cracks in there. They're in really nice shape. And the front fender looks like it's a steel front fender. Doesn't appear to be any dents in that, so that should be just a straightforward sanding job. Now the challenge will be getting a good paint match. Front fender has been repainted, I can tell. The side panels are really badly faded. The tail section is faded. The only place that is not is right here, which I think is behind a reflector, but I'm not convinced that's enough surface area for them to use the optical scanner on. And ideally I want to use some kind of original paint. I don't want to get the color scan off here because it's faded. In here is also original paint, but again, because of the angle of this, I don't think they can get the scanner in there. And then the other place that looks like it's original paint is back here where the seat would have covered up the back of the tank. So the challenge with that is you can see that some of it's kind of badly scuffed. There's a few spots down here that might work as well. So when I go to the paint shop tomorrow, because I can't start working on this until I get a good color match, because if I sand it all down, I've lost the color. So I'm going to take the tank with me, I'm going to take the rear tail section with me, and I'm going to take the fender with me, because although the fender's been repainted, it's a very good match. So if I need to, I will have to use the front fender, and it looks like it might have been a metallic paint, but very, very hard to tell. So yeah, and then this front fender here is off a Honda, the 66 Honda RC something or other. It's kind of one of those 250 6-cylinder type of racer style motorcycles, and the color that needs to be it's going to be silver. But it's not the silver that's on the fender now. So the bike that was painted, the guy that used to own the bike was using this as a color match for the front fairing. So it is 1966 RC166 Honda. So what I've done to try to get a color match from that, which is what my buddy Mark wants it matched to, is I've painted this piece of steel with that, which is this color. I'm going to then clear coat it, and then I will take that with me to the paint shop, and then they can match against that silver. Alright, so what I'm doing here, I'm just using the dolly and the hammer, body hammer here, just to take the dent out of here. So I've got it, I've got the profile here, the curve back to pretty much where it needs to be, which is the same as this side. The dent, I've got that hammered back out. This whole thing in here was dented right in. What I'm going to work on now is this crease line here. So basically what's happened is, as this got hit at some point here and dented in, there's a seam in the back right there, and that seam, the line right there, is what that is. So basically it bent the metal and cracked the paint right along that line. So what we don't want to have happen is I don't want to be able to see that line when we repaint it. And right now, if I feel that, it's I can just I've already kind of banged this out a little bit. I just need to do that a little bit more so that I can get this nice and flush again when the paint goes on. So the next thing I want to try to do here is I want to try to pull as much of this dent out as I can. I've already cleaned the side of the tank with brake cleaner. Hopefully that will allow the PDR pullers to attach a little more easily to the paint. So we'll see how it goes. I had some good luck with this stuff. It's just a cheap PDR kit off Amazon. Worked pretty well on my Ninja tank. So I'm hoping it'll work okay here. So this is it's just a glue gun, comes in the kit, and the glue, basically you attach the pullers onto the tank using the glue. You let it sit for 5 minutes to cool down, and then there's a number of different tools you can use to pull the dent. So there's a number of shapes and sizes. I mean, here's just a couple of examples. So I'm thinking that this one here might be a good fit. I mean, it should fit right in the groove there. Failing that, this one would fit in there as well. And there's a number of different pulling tools. So this one, the idea behind this guy is you kind of set it, you hook this piece over here. So that would attach like that. And once that's hooked on, you can adjust the height of it with this knob right here. And then you can basically just start. You don't really just want to pull hard, you just kind of slowly work it just to move the metal. And quite often these things you glue on will just pop off. So then you kind of start again, reattach it, and wait your 10 minutes for it to dry, and then you kind of keep working at it. So it's a lengthy process, but if you keep at it, it does work. And you can see what I'm kind of doing here. I'm just gently working that lever just to work that dent out just a little bit at a time. Just going to start to apply a little more pressure. I can see the tab's going to start to pop off in a second. That's fine. There we go, popped off. That's okay, that's what we expected. So what I'll do now is I'll clean that off. So basically the way you do that is there's a little bit of alcohol, and there's a plastic spatula that you just work in behind that. Like that. And it is starting to come out a little bit. The bottom part especially has come out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work more on this this top part this time. So I guess I should just say that I'm not expecting this dent to come out completely, just because it was a fairly hard crease in the middle of that. But I'm just not a big fan of putting excess body filler in anything, so the more of that I can pull out, the better, and especially at the top here, just in case it's kind of pushed the metal up. Filling in the small dips is not a big deal, but I don't want to have any kind of raised area of metal, which you sometimes get when you get a dent in the side. It will pop the metal up on the top, so the more I can pull it out, it's going to allow that metal to settle down a little bit, and just make the whole finish a little bit better. So this steel fender has got a number of dents and dings in it. So this edge here was quite out of whack. So that's now nice and straight. Managed to get most of that dent out of there. There was a high spot, looked like this had been kind of creased up here. So I've managed to get that back down. So that'll smooth out a lot better with a little bit of filler. And yeah, just a few dents, a few spots. There's one right here still to get out, right there. I'll get that out. This down here was bent up pretty good, so that's nice and straight back to normal. And yeah, I'm getting there. A little bit of this bottom edge is all kind of dented up, so we'll fix that up as well. Again, it comes just down to the fact that I don't want to put in more body filler than necessary, and you don't want any bulges, because if anything's sticking up, that's body filler is not going to fix that. And if you try to fix that with body filler, then you just end up with tons of it. So I'd rather have a little bit of a low spot than a high spot, but I'm just trying to get this thing as near to straight as I can get it before I break out the filler. So you can see now that I got most of the dent out. There's still a little bit of a recess there. So what I'm going to try to do now is I'm going to try to use my PDR rods, because I think I've taken the dent puller as far as I can. So I'm just going to see if I can work that a little bit more with the PDR rods and see what happens there. So the next step for me on this 350S2 Bodywork is just making some diagrams and measurements, so I know exactly where all the decals have to go after the fact. So now that those are done, the next job is going to be to start stripping the decals off. You can see that I got most of this dent out. There's still a little bit there. I use the PDR rods to push a little bit more out, but I don't want to start having the metal pulling out or pushing out this way. So I'm going to stop there. I'm not professional enough with the PDR rods yet to get that out completely, but it's certainly a lot better than it was, and I don't have to put very much filler in there at all. So, but generally speaking, this tank is in pretty decent shape. It's all original. I'm not going to be finding any filler or anything in here, so it'll take a bit of work to get the decals off, and then it'll be lots of sanding to remove kind of because as soon as the decals come off, there's just clear coated over, there'll be kind of indentations where all the lettering was or where all the stripes are. So the majority of the sanding work is to get all the surfaces smooth where the decals were originally. So that'll be the majority of the work for the tank. All the decals are gone, and then that's got some etching primer on there to make sure we don't get any rust. This is where I took the dent out of the tail. Bit of filler in there, needs to be sanded down. And then on this side here, I've got This is the spot where I took the dent out, so most of that filler again will be sanded off and will be gone by the time I'm done. Small ding here that, again, most of this was all removed, but it will be sanded back just to make sure we don't have any imperfections anywhere. Decals are gone off the side panels. Insides have all been cleaned with brake cleaner. And then that fender, I'm going to see if I can sandblast it clean. That's been repainted, so there's a layer or two of paint on there I want to get off. Same with the other Honda RC166 fender. That's going to get sandblasted as well. And yeah, that's coming along. Okay, so there's the 350S2 tank. The dent has been repaired and filled. Just needs some high build primer on there and then some further sanding. And then the tail section, where I took the dent out of that, it's got a little bit of skim of filler on there as well. And now that's ready for some primer. And then we'll move on to the front fender. So this S2 fender has quite a bit of rust underneath the paint, so I'm basically going to take it right down to the steel underneath, and I'm going to have to treat that. You can see right there, the blistering underneath the paint. So all that's rust. It's pretty significant down here. You can still see the traces of that. So yeah, I'm just gonna. There's no point in leaving any of that there. It'll just break through again. So what I'm going to do now, basically I've taken the majority of the paint off this S2 front fender. Still have to sand in here. I'm not too worried about that at the moment. We'll get that later. The bulk of the rust was, well, it was kind of everywhere along the top under the paint, and you can kind of see some of the dark spots right there. Now what I don't want to do, I mean, I'm not an expert at this stuff. I'm just trying to do what I know how to do. But I don't like just priming over this stuff, because that's the kind of stuff I think that eventually it will come back. I also don't want to grind it so thin and then start filling the stuff. So basically what, in this kind of case, what I like to do is I use a rust converter. This is just a spray on rust converter. Basically it'll get into all of those nooks and crannies, neutralize that rust, turns it a purpley black color. And then once that's done and it's dried, I'll sand the whole thing again, and then I'll prime it. And that way I feel more comfortable that the fender isn't gonna break through rust again. The other thing I did was I made sure to sand under the underside edges, because that's typically where the rust is also going to start. Rocks and dirt get kicked up from the front wheel. It'll chip the edge of the paint on the edge of the fender, and then it all starts to creep underneath the paint from there. So I've treated, I've sanded everything. I've sanded underneath the lips, and so now I'm going to hit it with the rust converter, leave that for a day to dry, and then it'll be sanded again lightly, and then I will hit it with the etching primer. All right, so there you see it with the rust converter on it. You see how it's kind of starting to get a bit of a purple tint. And then those darker spots there are getting a little even more purple. So that's basically telling me that it's neutralizing whatever remnants of rust were on there. And just a few more spots I had to touch up on this steel fender for the RC166. One more final coat of primer and that should be ready to go. There's only one small ding in the 350S2 front fender. That's been filled and sanded, just needs to be primed. And then just a final sanding on all this other stuff. We should be ready for paint. Alright, so I'm just doing a little bit of plastic welding right here on the side panels. There was a couple of spots here where it was cracked, so we're going to fix that up. Okay, so the final coat of primer is on all the parts, so now it's just one last sanding and then I can head to the paint shop. So just a couple of quick tips or bits of information here. As you know, I am not a professional mechanic, never have been, and I'm not a professional body man. I'm just kind of bumbling my way through all this stuff as I go. Sometimes I learn some good things from my friends and from others, and then other times I learn things through the traditional school of hard knocks. But when it comes to body work, just a couple of things that I was reminded of today that I thought I'd mention again. So the first thing would be, when it comes to kind of the finish and the getting dents out and marks and all of that kind of stuff, don't trust your eyes. Visually, what might look okay, quite often if you run your hands just gently over the surface, you will feel imperfections much more easily than you'll pick up with your eye. So my recommendation is, before you think you're finished, just kind of go over everything, and it's actually easier to do once you've done your sanding, because there's less texture there and it actually feels smoother, and you'll pick up any ripples or imperfections with your fingertips and with the palm of your hand much more easily than you will by eye. And then the other thing I will mention is, like, this is all the stuff that is going to get painted: the tank, 2 fenders, a tail section, and 2 side panels. And I always paint everything with primer, even if, you know, looking at it, there's no imperfections in it and you think, hey, I can get away with not priming that, I'll just sand it. I don't do that, and the reason is, and this is a good example here, and I should have videoed it when it happened, but I didn't. So when I first primed this, there was all kinds of cracking appeared in the primer. Like, it just, the primer reacted with the paint underneath, and it just started to blister in lines all the way through it, almost like something was running through the paint. And really what it was, I think, is that there were very, very tiny cracks in the paint, maybe from who knows what, years of maybe flexing the plastic or whatever. There's no cracks in the plastic because you'd be able to see them, but I think the paint had some like really micro fissures in it. And this is the oil tank cover, the 2-stroke oil tank cover. And I think years and years and years of oil getting spilt on this panel, even if it's been wiped clean. And then I sprayed the primer on, and the primer just reacted strangely with the paint underneath. And if there were cracks in the paint and the oil got in behind it, something funny happened with the paint on there, and I had to sand everything off. I took all of the paint off, right down to the bare ABS plastic, and then reprimed it, and it's now fine. So, and what I found this before, I would rather find sort of any compatibility issues with the paint now than when I'm shooting the color coat in the paint booth. That would be the absolute worst time to find it. So I'd rather spend, you know, the extra few dollars on some primer and know that everything is going to stick okay. There's going to be no funny reactions with paint and all that kind of stuff well in advance of getting to the paint booth. So my advice is, prime everything. Even if you think it doesn't need it, do it, because it'll also help highlight any imperfections and problems with the paint and all of that kind of stuff. All right, so all the stuff has been mounted here in the booth. It's been wiped down and tacked off. I've already done the first coat of silver on the RC166 front fender. So one more coat of silver for that, and then it's going to come out. And then we're going to paint all the burgundy on the 350S2 stuff. Once the 2 coats of burgundy are on all of this stuff, then the RC166 fender will come back in, and then we'll clear coat everything at the same time. There we go, second coat of clear is on. Everything seems to look pretty good. It's the RC166 front fender, and then everything else is off the Kawasaki 350 S2. So yeah, so this will stay here now the rest of the day, overnight. I'll pick it up tomorrow, bring it all home, get the decals on everything, and then the tank and the tail will come back to be re-cleared over once the decals are on. On this bike, the tank and the tail had the decals cleared in. The decals are not cleared in on the side panels. All right, everything is back at the shop. So now this stuff can sit for about a part of a week before I wet sand the tank and the tail section and put the decals on, and then back for more clear coat. Okay, so before I can apply the decals to this tank, what I need to do is wet sand it. And so it's got 2 coats of clear on it right now. So this kind of very slight texture, you can see I've kind of gone over this once lightly with, I'm doing 600 wet. I want it all to be kind of like this here, but I have to be careful that I don't burn through the clear coat. Okay, so there we are. Everything is wet sanded, and some of the hard to reach places I just used a kind of a fine grade 3M Scotch-Brite pad. And again, you just got to be careful that you don't go all the way through the clear coat to the color coat. Okay, so here are the tools that I use when I do my decals. Roll of tape. I use the green tape. Sticks okay, but not too hard. I use that just to kind of locate the decals where I want it. Pair of scissors, and that's important because I like to trim all the decals as close to the vinyl as I can without getting too close that I cut it. A tape measure, because of all the measurements that I took when I took this thing apart and stripped everything, which are on the paper here. I like one of these tape measures that's not overly rigid. So these are kind of like a for a tailor or a dressmaker or something like that. So these things, I think, give me a much more accurate reading, so then you can find out where it's supposed to go after. Sharp craft knife. You can use an X-Acto knife or whatever, but just make sure it's sharp. A needle, just stuck in the felt portion of the squeegee that I use, so that needle obviously will come out before I use it. And I use that to pop any bubbles that I get if I get them in the decals. So and the first step that I take is to locate the decals where I want them based on my measurements, and then I tape it onto the in this case the tank, at least so I can hinge it to some degree to get the backing paper off. The other thing I have is my my Barbie hair dryer. You don't want anything too hot. I've used heat guns before, and it's quite easy to bugger up the decal with a heat gun. So these, this is just the one my daughter had when she was a kid. It's got to be like, I don't know, 20 years old. But it warms everything enough to make the vinyl pliable, but not so hot that it ruins anything. And yeah, aside from that, it's clean. All the surfaces have been cleaned with alcohol. It's just standard drugstore rubbing alcohol. So once I sanded everything, the whole thing got wiped down with the alcohol, and we're going to get started on applying these decals. So here's something else to be careful of when you're applying decals to a motorcycle. In this case, it's Kawasaki, and oftentimes the Kawasaki or the Honda or whatever the decals, a certain font or slant to the decals. And by taking photos of this stuff before you stripped everything down, it's important to understand which of these decals goes on which side of the tank. So for instance, this one goes on the left side of the tank, and this one goes on the right side of the tank. Okay, it's important because all the letters are supposed to lean in a forward direction. So when this goes on the tank on this side, the letters are leaning forward at the top. Similarly, when this goes on the tank here somewhere, the letters are leading kind of forward like that. But you look at those and they're completely different. Don't put them in the wrong place. Okay, so in order to put these on, I put them on wet. This is just a squirt bottle that's got mainly water, 1 or 2 drops of liquid soap, and then a dribble of alcohol in there. So once you've got everything hinged on and positioned where you want it on the tank, so I want this right up against the seam here. And then if I need to trim the back, I can do that. But I try to set this up so I can at least hinge it up like that, out of the way. And then just a spray with the solution. Again, I apply it wet, so basically I'm just going to hinge this back down. Take off as we go. Just basically I move along the decal, just force all the water and all the bubbles out. And then when I pull back on the pre-mask, I want to pull back completely the opposite direction this way, and that way it doesn't, if you start pulling it like this, it's going to pull the decal off. So just going to want a steady pull. Like that. Okay, onto the Kawasaki decal. I've made my measurements, I've positioned it where I want it to be, and so basically it should be the same process. And the one warning I will give you, and I did have a bit of trouble with this with this top decal, is you want to it's a good idea, and I'll do it now, is just to start the peeling of the backing paper just a little bit before you spray the solution on. And the reason for that is, I find if this backing paper gets wet and is wet for too long, then when you start peeling it off, it ends up sticking to the back of the decal, and it's a real pain in the backside to get it off. So I would just recommend that you peel it ahead of time, or just a little bit, get yourself started, and then you're not running into problems. So same process as before, spray it, and I'm just gonna kind of hinge it back down and work my way from the middle outwards, and just kind of a curved motion. So basically I'm using this kind of a motion to lay the decal down. And similarly with this, I want to pull this off, so I don't want it to stick prematurely. Pick a corner and then peel it back this way against the Don't pull it outwards, peel it backwards. And there we go. All right, so we got the next decal placed where I want it. And so basically now I will spray my solution, and then we're getting started with the peeling. So take that off. And I'm just working this down the same way as I did the other side. Like that. Solution on, peel off the backing paper, and my curved motion with the squeegee. Okay, so onto the tail section. And again, I would just make sure that you understand and you know clearly which way round or which side these go on. So there's two of them here. Okay, they go this way. So black stripe on the bottom, same as the tank. And on this one, the wider section of the stripe is to the front. The narrow section of the stripe is to the back. And I'm going to go back to my my photographs that I took to reference that and to make sure that I've got all of the positioning and the measurements exactly where I want them to be. Hopefully I've got that positioned correctly. These ones, some of them are you know, trickier to position than others. Like on this one, I want to make sure that I've got at least 3.5 centimeters from that reflector hole to the decal in each direction, a little bit more here. This comes real close to the hole. For my pictures that I took before, I can see that. And then I want this part of the decal running fairly close to parallel to the bottom of the tail section. This one definitely at this end will have to get trimmed. From my photos I took before, I can tell that that's in exactly the right place, because the top of the blue line was basically level with the top of this support brace. So I'm happy with the positioning of that. Very pleased with the positioning of this. It's again right where it needs to be. Okay, now I got to prep the side panels. Now the difference with the side panels is the decals on here, the 350 decals, don't get clear coated over. Okay, so again, back to the importance of taking photographs beforehand. Again, the 350, the font is leaning forward, like on the angle of my hand here. So, and on this side panel, it's leaning that way. So obviously that's the front of the bike. And on this side, this is the front of the bike. Alright, so again, same process. Take my backing tape off. That. Spray the solution. And even if it's a small decal, we still peel that pre-mask off the same way. Now I just got to get the tank and the tail section back to the paint booth for a couple more coats of clear, and it'll be done. Alright, there is the final 2 coats of clear on the tank. Used my new gun. It came out really nice. It really lays the clear coat down nicely. So definitely worth buying a slightly better gun. The other one was doing a good job, but this one is even better. There is one little speck of dust right there, but looks good. But the clear coat is laid down much better with this new gun than it did with the old gun. So yeah, really pleased with it. So I upgraded my paint gun, and this is the Iwata Kiwami 4, and this is the one that I just painted that Kawasaki 350 S2 tank with, and the tailpiece. First time I've used it. Shot the clear with it, and I've got the tips and the nozzles or whatever in here. Just this is gun wash, but I just like to keep everything soaking in there. But I'm certainly not a professional painter, but I have to say that after using this, I mean, the other one was doing a pretty decent job getting this one back in here. And the one that says high quality on it, but it's a Chinese made one. And I've done about 10-15 paint jobs with that, and it's come out really well. But I have to say that the difference, I mean, this one was probably twice the money, maybe 3 times the money, because it was, I think, about $260 Canadian for just the gun. And then I paid 130 Canadian for the cup because it had to come out of Japan. I guess they figure most folks are going to use that disposable 3M cup system with these, but I just kind of wanted to stick with a conventional paint cup for what I do. So, you know, all in, probably close to, what would that be, $400, something like that, Canadian. And so this really laid the clear on like flat as glass. It was such a nice gun to use. And for the money, I guess it's been getting good reviews. And I always felt with the other gun that to get the clear to lay down, I was laying it on probably, even though, you know, my buddy helps me set up the gun because I'm not that good yet at actually setting the gun up. He does a lot of that for me, so I'm still learning that process. So, I felt that I was kind of, when I'm laying the paint down, or laying especially the clear coat, to get it to flow out, I'm putting on a fair amount of product. And you know, I said to him, like, how much product do you lay on? He said, kind of, you know, not as much as you lay on. And aside from the fact that, you know, maybe my technique is a little bit different, I'm still developing. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that the cheaper gun that I showed you down there doesn't atomize the paint anywhere near as well as this. Because today I used far less clear coat. It went on like flat as glass, and it was effortless. I didn't feel like I was walking that fine line between a nice gloss shiny finish and a paint run. It just, I think a lot of it just comes from how well this gun atomizes the paint, and it was just easier to put down a nice flat coat of clear. When I say flat, I mean without any orange peel. So a nice glossy coat of clear without feeling that there was excess clear going on onto the tank or onto the bodywork or whatever. So far so good. Very happy with the way that this performed today, and yeah, we'll be trying it again when we fix this one up and get that painted up in the next video. So thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you very soon for another episode of we'll either be painting or quick preview of what's going on with the CBX right here. So stay tuned. Thanks.